The punch landed so cleanly the microphone picked it up, a sharp, awful clap that ran around the banquet hall before anyone's gasp could catch it. Billionaire Malik Davenport's head snapped to the side, and he staggered into the crystal podium where the coral bead necklace, a piece every Lagos elder recognized, hung on a velvet bust beneath the stage lights. Photographers froze mid-shot. The band quit mid-chord. The screen behind the stage, which had been looping Malik's smiling face for the Davenport Foundation's One City, One Future gala, caught the instant his jaw hardened and a thin line of blood traced his lip. For one suspended moment, nobody moved. Hundreds of guests in igbadas, geli, tuxedos and gowns held their breath. The MC's mouth hung open. A glass shattered somewhere in the back. And at the center of the scene, a young woman in a housekeeper's charcoal gray uniform, a bracelet of faded thread at her wrist, and a name tag that read, Amaka, stared at her own trembling fist like it belonged to somebody else. Security lunged. Malik lifted a palm to hold them off and looked straight at her. "You don't know what you've just started," he said, so calmly the words sliced through the speakers. Then the power flickered. The hall plunged into a heartbeat of darkness. A scream tore from the balcony. When the generators rumbled and the chandeliers flared back to life, the coral bead necklace was gone, and two security guards had Amaka's teenage brother, Chidi, on the floor in handcuffs at the foot of the stage. Hours earlier, none of this was supposed to be possible. The Royal Palm Hotel had polished the floors twice, starched the linens to snapping, and told the staff to float like shadows. Malik's American and Pan-African guests were flying in, and anywhere Malik went, cameras followed. The hotel manager, Mr. Bello, had called the morning briefing himself, his voice a dry clap. "No one speaks unless spoken to. No one looks the guests in the eye. If you know how to be invisible, be it today." Amaka had nodded with everyone else. Invisible wasn't new. She was 22 and moved the way Lagos taught you to move. In the spaces people didn't see, in the seconds they didn't count. Since her father died, she'd learned the schedule of the city by heart. The market's cool hours, the Danfo rush, the exact window to catch the landlord in his softer mood. She knew which washers at the hotel groaned on hot cycles and which elevators stalled between the 8th and 9th floors. Invisible let you survive without permission. But it was getting harder to be unseen since the Davenport buyout. A month ago, Malik's company had acquired both the Royal Palm and the land where the Oak Aaron market sprawled. Tin roofs, jollof smoke, bead sellers calling like birds. The press release said revitalization, a word slick with good intentions. In practice, revitalization meant a bulldozer at dawn and a security line like a knife. Her mother, Mama Ngozi, watched her fabric stall disappear under dust and kept her grief quiet by rolling her wax prints tighter, as if smaller bundles could hurt less. Amaka remembered Malik's first walk-through after the purchase. He was younger in person than he looked on magazine covers, 42 at most, tall in a midnight tux that seemed to carry its own weather. People who weren't from here tried to say his first name like they owned it. He said it like an old song. He'd stopped at the service corridor where Amaka waited with a tray of bottled water. His eyes had flicked to her name tag. "You've been here how long, Miss Okafor?" he'd asked. 3 years, sir." "Loyalty," he'd said as if it were a rare garment he might buy. "We reward that. But we also reward excellence, which means efficiency. You'll find we're tightening a lot of slack." Tightening slack meant biometric time clocks that docked pay for breathing wrong. It meant splitting one person's job into two for the same salary. It meant, 1 week later, when a donor had an allergic reaction to a canopy, someone whispered "kitchen," and the rumor grew a mouth and called Amaka's name. Mr. Bello took her aside for the performance. "We can't have scandal attached to a face." There was a warning letter. There was a threat without fingerprints. "Noise will ruin you here." There had been other small wounds. Revitalization fenced off the block of staff quarters and posted an eviction date at the gate like an invitation card. On that paper the signature, Malik's, looked blunt and final. The very morning of the gala, security had marched through the quarters and pinned new notices, now stamped. "Non-compliance will result in immediate removal by police." Chidi had torn one off the wall with the wildness of teenagers who don't yet know which fights can break you. "We'll talk to him, Auntie," he'd said to their mother, jaw set. "He's a person. He'll listen." "Power listens to money," Mama had said, binding her headscarf. "Keep your head low." So when Amaka saw the coral bead necklace on the velvet bust near the stage, saw the looped red beads like fresh palm nuts, saw the gold clasp, saw the carved ivory pendant with the faint crack that her mother's thumb used to find without looking, she felt something tilt inside her. She knew that necklace. Sunday afternoons Mama wore it to church. The day of the bulldozers, it vanished with the stall. The gala swelled around her. A DJ blending juju into Afrobeats, ceiling draped in white, a wall of donors and influencers and elders. On the screen Malik smiled, hand on heart. He stood at the podium and talked about shared futures, about bridging Lagos and Atlanta, about sustainable modernization. He held the necklace up for the cameras. A piece of our story, he called it, his voice as smooth as cream. Generously donated to the foundation. Auction begins at 20 million naira. The room clapped. A TV anchor angled her chin for camera 3. Someone said, "That's Chief Obi's family design," and someone else said, "Everything has a price." Amaka stepped forward without remembering the first step. The stage lights hit her eyes like afternoon sun on the lagoon. Security moved, but Malik raised a hand as if he enjoyed an interruption. He smiled the way rich men smile when they know they'll leave with more than they brought. "Sir," Amaka said, fingers twisting the thread on her wrist, breath snagging on her ribs. "That necklace does not belong to you. It was taken from the market. From my mother's stall." A ripple through the audience. People don't expect boldness to come wrapped in a housekeeper's uniform. Malik glanced at Mr. Bello, then back at her, his smile cooling a degree. "Everything on this stage," he said, "was lawfully acquired." "By who?" she asked. "Men with bulldozers? Men who push mothers against walls and call it charity." A murmur. A frown bloomed on the face of an elder in cap and lace. Cameras leaned in like they could smell story. The MC tried to take the microphone back. Malik kept it. He stepped down, closing the space between them to a small, charged square of carpet. Up close, Amaka saw the expensively quiet watch at his wrist, the tiny white scar on his jaw, the eyes too tired for their own reflection. He lowered his voice, not to be kind but to sharpen it. "I know your type," he murmured. "You think outrage makes power look at you. Power doesn't look down, Miss Okafor. It erases. Now go back to your station before you lose more than you can pay for." Something in Amaka snapped, a small branch under too much weight. All the weeks of quiet swallowed in her chest. The eviction, the warning letter, her mother's empty neck, rose and burst. Her fist flew before she could name the motion, and the sound of it echoed as if the room itself had hands and clapped once. Then the cascade. Malik swayed, stumbled, reached for the podium. The necklace trembled on its stand. Security grabbed Amaka's elbows. Camera flashes began to strobe like lightning. "Stop!" the MC shouted, voice breaking into the mic. "Everyone, stop!" And then the power dropped. For one breath, there was nothing but dark and the scrape of shoes and a cry from the balcony that sounded like grief and fear had the same throat. When the lights surged, the velvet bust stood empty. The necklace had vanished. Near the foot of the stage, Chitty lay face down under 2 guards, wrists bound, eyes wild, breath heaving. "That boy tried to steal the piece," a woman in sequins cried, pointing. "I saw him run." "You're lying." Amaka's voice tore out of her without permission. "Chitty, don't move." "Don't?" She lunged, a guard yanked her back. Mr. Bello materialized at her side, cheeks slick with sweat. "Enough," he hissed. "You've destroyed yourself tonight." Malik wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. He looked at the blood, his own proof of the moment, and then at Amaka and then at Chitty. The room waited for him to roar, to call police, to turn tonight into a spectacle that would trend before the desserts rolled out. Instead, he reached into his jacket, pulled out a folded sheet stamped with the foundation seal, and let it fall. It fanned against the stage steps, face up. The top line in bold read, "Immediate clearance order. Staff quarters, Block C." The signature at the bottom wasn't his. An ice-water silence ran through the air conditioners. Mr. Bello went a shade paler. Malik's eyes lifted to the balcony, to a shadow near the lighting rig that didn't belong. He spoke into the microphone softly, like the sentence was meant for one person. "No more games, Sola." The chandeliers flickered again. The DJ's screen glitched. From the back of the hall, a voice shouted, "Police! Everyone remain where you are." Amaka's hands shook. The thread at her wrist cut into her skin. The man who had taken her mother's necklace had just dropped a paper that said someone else held the blade at their backs. Her brother's breath came in hot choirs. Malik's gaze stayed fixed on the shadow like a hunter who's finally heard the rustle. And from above, where the rigging met the ceiling drapes, something metallic winked and fell, straight toward the stage. Amaka didn't think. She threw herself forward as another scream shattered the night. Metal met silk with a brutal clang. The falling object wasn't a chandelier, it was a stage light, a heavy steel can with a jaw-like clamp. It knifed through the white drapes and hurtled toward the podium where Malik and the empty velvet bust stood like an accusation. Amaka didn't think. She threw her weight into him, knocking his shoulder just enough that the light smashed into the edge of the lectern instead of his temple. The podium split with a sickening crack. Glass beads skittered like hail across the floor. A second stunned silence collapsed into shouting, security barking, guests stumbling backward, phones raised toward the chaos like a forest of little moons. Malik hit the parquet on his hands and one knee, shock bright in his eyes. For a beat, Amaka tasted metal in her mouth and realized she'd bitten her tongue. A guard yanked her back by the elbow. Another shielded Malik with his own body as police in navy uniforms pushed through the aisle, palms out. Someone hit the house lights to full, bleaching the room into an unkind brightness. The band took their hands off their instruments as if even a soft note could turn into blame. "Lock the exits," a policewoman with braids ordered. "No one leaves." "You," she jabbed at a security captain, "cordon off the stage and that balcony. Where's the event manager?" "Here," Mr. Bello said, appearing with the haste of a man who'd prefer to be invisible but knows his title won't let him. His smile tried and failed to find his face. "We have protocols, officer." "We'll use ours," she said briskly, already signaling to two officers to head for the rigging ladder. On the floor, Chitty kept calling, "I didn't touch anything. I didn't, Auntie." His voice was pitched high, the way boys talk when they're working very hard to sound like men. Amaka pulled against the grip on her elbow. "He's a houseboy, not a thief," she said, but the words fell heavy and took too long to land. Malik stood, testing his jaw with two fingers. His gaze flickered to the shattered lectern, to the dangling light, to Amaka. His expression was unreadable. It was not forgiveness. It wasn't fury either. It looked like something complicated had finally confirmed itself. The screen behind the stage, which had been cycling through the foundation's logo and a glossy montage of school ribbon cuttings and borehole openings, glitched into static and then cut to a black slate. A few guests turned, hoping for information. Instead, the slate stayed empty, as if whoever controlled it had stopped believing in words. "Kill that screen," Mr. Bello hissed, snapping at the AV tech. The AV tech shook his head, gesturing helplessly at a dead switch. The generators hummed, steady and indifferent. From the far side of the hall, a tall man in a slim charcoal suit stepped out from behind a floral wall. He had the posture of someone used to camera lenses loving him, chin lifted, smile practiced. His name, to most headlines, was Sola Davenport, Chief Operating Officer of Davenport Urban Partners and Malik's cousin on his mother's side. Rumor made him other things too, closer to the contractors than a COO should be, familiar with envelopes that closed at night. Sola's eyes moved fast, calculating. He took in Malik's bruised lip, Amaka's uniform, the police, the fallen light, and smiled only with his teeth. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, moving to the microphone a staffer had placed on a secondary stand, "let's remain calm. The Davenport Foundation will cooperate fully with the authorities to recover our missing heritage piece. Safety is our priority." "Our missing heritage piece?" an elder in a cap barked. "That necklace belongs to our people, not your brand." Sola turned the elder a glance with the temperature of an empty room. "Chief, we're on the same side." "Are we?" Malik said into nothing because he didn't have a microphone. It didn't matter. People watched him anyway. He lifted the fallen clearance order, his thumb pressed to the seal as if feeling whether it was still real. He turned it so Sola could see the signature line at the bottom, Bello Adideo, General Manager, Royal Palm Hotel, and then let it hang between his fingers. Mr. Bello's face went flat and then slick with sweat. "Officer," Malik said to the policewoman, voice steady. "Detain no one until you pull the CCTV from the rigging corridor. Something fell from up there. Someone wanted it too." "Already on it," she replied, glancing to where her two officers were climbing the ladder, boots ringing on the metal. Amaka forced herself to breathe evenly. The rough thread at her wrist, Mama's tied when Papa died, had bitten into the soft spot near her palm. She reached for Chitty. The guard holding her let her fingers brush his shoulder. Chitty squeezed her hand like a drowning boy grips a rope. They had not meant to be anywhere near the stage. That afternoon, between shifts, Chitty had shown her a clip on his battered phone. "See," he'd said, eyes bright with the fever of schemes. "This cousin, this Sola, he talks like sugar but his shadow doesn't match his body. My guy Zik in maintenance says the new biometric locks on the rigging corridor are only for executives. But he saw Sola's man slip in there with a black Pelican case and a roll of gaffer tape." Chitty had grinned, unafraid in the way only the new to danger can be. "If anything goes missing, it won't be because of me. Amaka had rubbed her temple. You're not 10 feet from that stage, Chitty. Promise me. He had. Teenagers make promises the way rain makes puddles, sincere until feet find them. Now, as officers spread and guests rippled their indignation in whispers, Malik stepped nearer to Amaka, not close enough to touch. You should be in the staff corridor, he said quietly. For your own protection. It didn't sound like a threat. It sounded like a fact trying to be a kindness. For my own protection, my brother shouldn't be on the floor, she said. Her voice surprised her, it didn't shake. And my mother's necklace shouldn't be your showpiece. Something that might have been shame moved behind his eyes and was gone. That piece came through an auction house in Atlanta, he said. Documented. Vetted. Donated by a collector named. People with papers stole land for 400 years, she said before she could stop herself. Papers bless anything. His jaw worked once. He was about to answer when a shout came from the balcony. Officer. We have something. All eyes rose. One of the police officers on the catwalk leaned over the rail, holding up a small black device between two gloved fingers. Hidden camera, he called. Pointed at the stage. Remote uplink to the AV switcher. A noise went through the hall, equal parts hungry and appalled. The AV tech swore under his breath. Mr. Bello took a step toward the back. Sola's smile close up flickered. Playback, the policewoman said. Now. The dead screen twitched. Static crawled, climbed, organized itself into an image, a dim, slightly tilted view from behind the stage. The timestamp in the corner read 1942, 20 minutes before Amaka's punch. On the screen, stagehands flitted like fish. The coral necklace sat in its pride on the velvet bust, sharp in the light. A figure entered frame from the side, tall, slim, careful. He wore a baseball cap pulled low and a black jacket that absorbed lights. He moved the way people move when they believe the world owes them invisibility. He walked straight to the bust, placed both hands on the necklace, and with the impatience of someone late for another appointment, unclasped it. He slipped it into a black pelican case. He turned just enough for the camera to catch one cheekbone, the mouth's shape. Gasps rippled. The shape was familiar. The figure crossed to the wing where housekeeping carts lined up, identical. Clean rags, spray bottles, the faint lemon of polish. He lifted a towel, opened a cabinet door on one cart, tucked the black case inside and shut it softly. He glanced once toward the stage and left the frame with a ghost's confidence. Freeze it, the officer called. The image stopped. The policewoman stepped forward, fingers stabbing through the air. Zoom. The AV tech shook his head. Not much resolution, he warned, but pinched into the pixel mud anyway. The housekeeping cart's label swam into blocky letters. The room leaned forward together like a single body smelling rain. Okafor. Amaka felt the floor tilt under her. Her stomach did a slow, ugly turn. People around her made a sound that meant see? And of course, and poor thing and thief. That's a setup, she said, voice raw. He put it there. Who is he? The frame was mush, but the jawline, the way of standing, the nervous habit of licking the lower lip. Someone in this room knew that silhouette. It's unclear, Sola said smoothly, but a vein in his neck ticked. Let's not malign anyone without due. Play 3 seconds before he turns, the policewoman ordered. The image jogged backward, forward, caught the cap brim lift a fraction, caught light on a face. It wasn't Malik. It wasn't Sola. It wasn't a stranger either. It was Mr. Bello. A sound like air tearing went through the hall. Mr. Bello made 2 steps toward the exit before 2 security guards, his own men, hesitated, then turned slightly to block him. He threw his palms up, frantic. No, this is wrong. That angle, someone is framing. Frame this, the policewoman said and signaled. 2 officers moved, quick and quiet. They had Mr. Bello's wrists cuffed before his plea finished, tripping over his tongue. Open the cart, she said. Now. They wheeled the labeled cart forward, past Amaka's numb legs, past Chitty's wide eyes to the front of the stage. The officer popped the cabinet. Inside, right on top of neatly folded microfiber cloths, sat the black case. He lifted it into the light, flipped the latches. The coral beads lay coiled like a living thing, red as pounded palm oil, the small crack in the ivory pendant white as a scar. 100 phones clicked. Evidence bag, the policewoman said, but before the officer could seal the case, Amaka saw it, a sliver of something not quite bead at the edge of the ivory crack. A millimeter of matte black like the mouth of a secret. She moved before anyone could tell her she wasn't allowed. Wait, she said hoarsely, reaching not for the beads themselves but for the pendant, thumb and forefinger light. There's something here? Don't touch, the officer snapped. It's already damaged, Malik said, surprising himself with his own voice. Let her show you. The policewoman hesitated. Reading rooms was her profession. She gave the smallest nod. Carefully, with the officer's hands beneath hers, Amaka pressed the side of the pendant. The tiny crack widened with a soft click. The ivory plate slid aside on a hidden hinge. Inside, cushioned by a shallow cavity, sat a paper-thin flash drive and a folded thumbnail of paper no larger than a postage stamp, both black with handling and time. The room made a new sound, low, confused, greedy. The policewoman plucked the drive with tweezers and held it up so it caught the white glare of the house lights. On it, in faint gold print, were 2 words, "Oki Aaron." The folded paper flaked at the edges. The policewoman unfolded it slowly. Ink glimmered. She read once, blinked, then read again aloud, voice steady but carrying a current that made the hair on Amaka's arms rise. Compensation schedule, Oak Aaron displacement, funds to be disbursed to named stallholders within 30 days of acquisition. Signed, Malik T. Davenport. Countersigned. She stopped. The second signature lay there like a trap sprung in daylight. The countersignature was Sola's. A wave of stunned murmurs rippled through the gala hall like the wind had suddenly found 1,000 mouths. People turned to Sola, their eyes slicing through his confident facade. Cameras from journalists, influencers and vloggers swung toward him. Lenses blinked like hungry eyes waiting for confession. Sola's practiced smile twitched. This is a forgery, he said, forcing a laugh that didn't catch. Anyone could have signed that. Malik, you can't seriously believe. But Malik wasn't looking at him. His gaze was fixed on the flash drive still glinting in the policewoman's hand. The coral necklace, the very piece meant to symbolize unity, now lay open on the podium like a wound exposing everything they'd hidden beneath the gloss. Play what's inside, Malik said quietly. His tone was calm, but his eyes were storm-dark. The policewoman nodded to the AV technician, who slid the drive into a port. The projector screen behind them flickered back to life. Static gave way to a folder, its title, Oak Aaron Payments. When the first file opened, the room fell into a kind of holy silence. On the screen, video footage began to play, grainy but clear enough. It showed Sola sitting across from a group of men in a dim office. The men wore contractor uniforms, their voices overlapping with the clink of bottles. One man slid an envelope thick with cash across the desk. Sola's voice filled the hall through the speakers. Clear the market before the press hears about the payment structure. Don't send a dime to the stallholders until the land title is transferred. I'll handle the paperwork. Just make it look legal. A gasp swept through the audience. Then another clip, Sola standing beside a bulldozer at dawn, giving orders. The Oak Aaron market stalls, colorful, chaotic, filled with women shouting prices, appeared in the background. The bulldozer engines roared, drowning out protests. One voice rose above the noise, small and cracked with grief. Was Mom Ngozi's. Those are our children's books. My fabric. You promised. The bulldozer didn't stop. Amaka clutched her chest as tears threatened. She'd been at work that morning, unaware her mother's world was being buried in dust. Her throat ached at hearing her mother's pleas echo through the speakers like ghosts demanding justice. Sola lunged toward the technician. Turn that off. It's illegal surveillance. You have no right. 2 officers grabbed him by the arms before he could reach the laptop. He struggled, his designer cufflinks glinting under the lights. Malik, you're really going to let them play this? You think this helps you? You signed off on every one of those projects. Malik's jaw tightened. He stepped forward, his shadow stretching across the broken podium. I signed what you brought me, Sola. And I trusted that my cousin wouldn't turn our foundation into a scam to enrich himself. Sola barked a bitter laugh. Trust? You haven't trusted anyone since your father died. You wanted control, Malik, all of it. I just learned from the best. The hall bristled with murmurs again, like fire crackling across dry leaves. Guests whispered, "Is this real?" And their family. Others began recording, holding up their phones. The policewoman raised her voice above the noise. That's enough. This recording is now evidence. Officers, take Mr. Sola Davenport into custody for questioning. As the officers began to escort him away, Sola jerked free long enough to hiss at Malik. You think this ends with me? You don't know half of what's under your name. His words hung in the air like a curse. Then, with a final glare at Amaka, sharp, burning, Sola was led through the sea of murmuring guests and flashing lights. Malik's composure fractured for the first time that night. He rubbed his temple, a small tremor running through his hand. The man who owned half of Lagos real estate suddenly looked like someone realizing his entire empire was built on broken promises. He turned to Amaka. "Your mother," he began, voice low, "she was supposed to be compensated, properly. My legal team assured me every displaced family received payments. I didn't know this. This was how he'd done it." Amaka stared at him, words heavy in her throat. "You had a choice to see or not to see. You chose not to." Her voice was steady, but her eyes burned with pain. "You speak of progress, but people like us pay for it with everything we have. My mother lost her stall, her savings, her pride. And when I saw her necklace here tonight," her lips trembled, "it felt like the world was mocking her suffering." Malik's gaze faltered. For the first time there was no arrogance, no billionaire detachment, just quiet, human guilt. "You're right," he said simply. "I failed them." Before Amaka could respond, another commotion stirred near the entrance. A young hotel staffer rushed in, breathless, waving a phone. "Sir. Officer. There's been an incident in the parking lot. One of the guards found another Pelican case in the trunk of Sola's car." The policewoman took the phone and examined the photo. Inside the newly found case were bundles of dollar bills, property documents, and a list of names. She glanced up at Malik. "It appears this wasn't just corruption. These funds were routed offshore." Malik's face went pale. "Through the foundation?" "Yes," she said grimly. "And through accounts under your name." Gasps again. This time they were directed not at Sola but at Malik himself. Sola, hearing from the doorway, smirked over his shoulder as officers shoved him forward. "Told you, cousin, this mess has your fingerprints too." Malik's voice hardened. "If I'm guilty of anything, I'll face it. But this will be investigated properly." He turned to the policewoman. "Take whatever files you need. I'll cooperate fully." Amaka folded her arms, studying him. He looked like a man cornered, not by others but by truth itself. As the officers began sealing the stage and escorting staff out for statements, Malik approached Amaka again, quieter this time. "Your brother, he'll be released immediately. And your mother, I'd like to meet her." Amaka blinked. "Why?" "Because I owe her an apology," he said, voice tight, "and more than that, a restoration. The land at Oak Aaron will be returned. Every displaced trader will receive their due. If the courts approve it, I'll make sure it happens personally." For a moment the hall felt still. Not peaceful, just stunned. The mighty Malik Davenport, the man who had towers named after him, standing in public and saying sorry. But before anyone could process his words, the lights flickered again. Then without warning the screen behind them came alive once more. This time it wasn't a file from the drive. It was a live feed from the hotel's security cameras. On screen, a dark figure moved quickly through the basement corridor, toward the hotel's storage wing. He carried something metallic in his hand, something that glinted when the camera caught it. "Who's that?" the policewoman asked sharply. The AV tech zoomed in. The image was blurry but clear enough to make out the uniform, the same charcoal gray staff outfit. The same name tag. Okafor. The audience gasped again. Amaka froze. "That's not me," she whispered, shaking her head. "I've been here." But the figure on the screen turned slightly toward the camera, and though the resemblance was uncanny, something was off. The face looked like hers but sharper, colder. It wasn't her. It was someone pretending to be her. The figure placed a package into a storage locker, looked directly at the camera, and smiled. Then the feed went black. "What's going on?" Malik demanded. The policewoman turned toward Amaka, voice low but firm. "Miss Okafor, whoever that is, they just used your name, and they're still inside this building." Amaka's pulse hammered in her throat. Someone had gone to incredible lengths not just to frame her, but to replace her entirely. The officer's radio crackled. "Ma'am, basement alarm just triggered near the maintenance lift. Unknown female heading for the loading dock." The policewoman's eyes snapped toward Amaka. "Stay here." She motioned to her team and sprinted for the exit. Amaka stood frozen as the crowd erupted again. Her mind raced. Who would go this far? Who wanted her destroyed even after the truth about Sola was out? Malik turned to her. "Do you know anyone who could be behind this?" She swallowed hard. "No. But whoever she is, she's not working alone." And just as those words left her mouth, a deafening boom echoed from below the hotel, deep, metallic, and final. The lights cut out. And in the brief, breathless darkness that followed, the billionaire and the maid both realized. The night's real story had just begun. The explosion shook the Royal Palm Hotel like thunder rolling through stone. Crystal chandeliers swayed violently, sending fractured light across the hall. Guests screamed and ducked beneath tables. The power cut again, plunging everything into a flickering half-darkness broken only by the pale glow of phone flashlights. "Everyone stay calm," the policewoman shouted, her voice firm even as debris rained softly from the ceiling molding. "Emergency teams are on the way." Smoke drifted in from the hallway, gray fingers creeping through the golden archways. Amaka covered her mouth with her sleeve and scanned the stage for Chitty. He was crouched by the edge, coughing, eyes wide and terrified. She ran to him, pulling him up by the arm. "Are you hurt?" she gasped. "I'm fine," he coughed, his eyes darting toward the side door. "Auntie, that blast," it came from the basement. "They're trying to destroy the evidence." Malik, wiping soot from his jacket, turned toward them. His voice was hoarse but controlled. "We have to get out before there's another one. You," he pointed at one of the security guards, "get the guests to the main exit. Prioritize women and children." The guard nodded and began shouting orders. The crowd moved like a panicked tide. The sound of fire alarms filled the air, shrill and relentless. The policewoman reappeared, her uniform streaked with dust. "Basements hit hard," she said quickly. "Someone set off a small detonator, probably to destroy digital records or drives. Fire units containing it, but whoever did it escaped through the loading dock tunnel." "Did they get her?" Amaka asked, her voice trembling. "Not yet," the officer replied grimly. "But from the security feed she looked exactly like you. Someone went through serious effort to copy your identity." Malik's eyes narrowed. "Which means she had access to staff data. That can't happen without inside help." The officer nodded. "Agreed. Whoever this imposter is, she's not just trying to frame the maid, she's trying to erase something bigger." Before Amaka could speak, Malik's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and the color drained from his face. "What is it?" the officer asked. He turned the phone so they could see. A text from an unknown number, simple and chilling. "You shouldn't have let her punch you. Now everyone will burn." Amaka's stomach twisted. "It's her. Whoever's pretending to be me, she's sending that." The officer barked orders into her radio, calling for units to sweep the lower levels and the parking lot. Malik pocketed the phone, his jaw tight. "Miss Okafor," he said to Amaka, "whatever this woman wants, it's personal. We need to find out who she is before the police pin this entire disaster on you." "I don't even know where to start," Amaka whispered. "I don't have enemies. I'm just—" "Not just anything," Malik interrupted. "Someone targeted you because you were visible tonight. Because you stood up." His words hit her like a drumbeat, sharp and uncomfortable. For years, being invisible had been her safety. Now visibility was both her weapon and her curse. The officer's radio crackled again. "Suspect sighted outside, East Alley behind the loading dock. Female, gray uniform heading toward the service gate." "Move," the officer barked. They sprinted through the smoke-filled corridor, feet slapping marble. Malik followed, his bodyguards close behind. The corridor smelled of burning plastic and perfume. Ceiling lights flickered, painting everything in harsh flashes. They burst into the service alley, a narrow lane behind the hotel where garbage bins lined the walls. The night air hit them, thick with diesel and humidity. At the far end, under the harsh beam of a streetlight, a woman turned sharply, her silhouette framed against the smoke. The resemblance was uncanny, same charcoal uniform, same height, even the same braid trailing down her back. "Stop!" the officer shouted, raising her flashlight. The woman froze, then slowly turned. For the first time, Amaka saw her face clearly. She was like looking into a distorted mirror. The imposter had Amaka's features but colder, more calculated, eyes that seemed to measure everything, lips curved in a half-smile that didn't reach her gaze. "You," Amaka whispered, breath catching. The woman tilted her head, amusement flickering across her face. "Hello, Amaka. Or should I say, original version?" "Who are you?" Malik demanded. "Call me Amaeze," she said calmly. "The one who fixes what people like you break." Police floodlights illuminated the alley as officers surrounded her. But Amaeze didn't flinch. She reached into her pocket, slowly enough not to trigger a reaction, and held up a small remote with a blinking red light. "Don't move," she warned. "You think that basement blast was bad? Try the generator room next." "Drop it," the officer barked, weapon raised. Amaeze smiled faintly. "You have 10 seconds to listen or this hotel burns." Amaka stepped forward before anyone else could. "Why me? Why did you use my name?" Amaze's eyes softened, just for a heartbeat. "Because the world doesn't listen to maids, Amaka. But when a maid punches a billionaire, everyone watches. And when they watch, they finally see the rot underneath. You planted bombs for justice? Amaka cried. You nearly killed people. People die quietly every day because of men like him, Amaeze said, nodding toward Malik. Mothers lose their homes, children go hungry, markets vanish. I only made sure they felt it for once. Her hand tightened on the detonator. The blinking light sped up. Malik stepped forward, palms raised. If this is about the Oak Aaron displacement, I'll fix it. You have my word. Amaeze laughed, bitter and tired. Fix it? You think your apology can rebuild what greed erased? Amaka moved again, her heart hammering. Then let's rebuild it together, but not like this. You think destruction will heal us? It won't. Amaeze hesitated. Her thumb hovered over the trigger. For a moment, the alley held its breath. Then, from behind the dumpsters, another figure emerged, armed, face hidden under a black hood. Amaeze, it's done. Let's go. The officers shouted, chaos breaking again. The hooded man grabbed Amaze's arm and yanked her back. She dropped the detonator in surprise, and it clattered across the pavement. Malik lunged, kicking it away just as an officer scooped it up and disabled the trigger. Move, move, the policewoman shouted. The hooded man fired a shot into the air. Panic scattered through the officers as he pulled Amaeze toward a black SUV waiting near the end of the alley. Malik dove behind a car, dragging Amaka and Chidi with him. The SUV roared to life, speeding into the night before any officer could block it. When the smoke cleared, all that was left behind was the echo of tires screeching, and the remote blinking faintly before dying. The officer kicked it aside. They got away, she muttered. But we'll find them. Whoever they are, they're part of something much bigger. Malik exhaled, still crouched beside Amaka. They wanted to destroy the foundation, he said, more to himself than anyone. Not just expose it, end it. Amaka looked up at him, her face streaked with soot and disbelief. And you think they're done? He met her eyes. No, he said quietly. They just declared war. The distant wail of sirens filled the air. The hotel's lights flickered weakly back to life. The policewoman turned to Amaka and Malik. We'll need full statements from both of you. And Miss Okafor, whoever this Amaeze is, she clearly knows your life. We'll need to find out how. Amaka nodded slowly, her chest tight. Somewhere inside that smoke and chaos, a mirror image of her had disappeared into the night, taking secrets, revenge, and danger with her. As she watched the flames licking the edge of the hotel's roof, Amaka realized one terrifying truth. The punch had only started the story. And what came next might cost them everything. If you've been following Amaka's story, what would you have done if you were in her place? Would you confront a billionaire in public or stay silent to protect your job? Tell us what you think in the comments below. We love reading your opinions. And if this story has gripped you so far, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, give this video a like, and share it with friends who love suspenseful African stories like this one. Your support keeps these stories alive. The dawn after the explosion looked nothing like morning. The Royal Palm Hotel stood cordoned off by yellow police tape, its grand glass entrance veiled in smoke stains. Reporters crowded the gates like vultures drawn to a fresh story. Microphones, cameras, and voices clashed in the humid air. Is it true the Maid attacked the billionaire? Did Davenport orchestrate the fire to cover up corruption? Who is the woman impersonating the Maid? Flashing lights from police vehicles painted the once glamorous courtyard in chaotic reds and blues. Inside, the marble floors were slick with soot and muddy footprints. Amaka sat in a small conference room beside her brother, Chidi. Both wore fresh clothes borrowed from the staff laundry, clean but heavy with exhaustion. Across the table, the lead investigator, Inspector Omalara, the same policewoman from the gala, leafed through reports. Malik Davenport sat at the far end of the table, his suit jacket gone, shirt sleeves rolled up. For the first time, he didn't look like a billionaire, he looked like a man stripped of armor. Omalara set her pen down. Let me make sure I have this straight, she said, her tone steady. You, Amaka Okafor, were accused of stealing a cultural necklace, but the footage later revealed your manager, Mr. Bello, was involved, and your identity was cloned by a woman calling herself Amaeze. Yes, ma'am, Amaka said softly. She looks like me, talks like me. But she's not me. Omalara nodded. And this Amaeze escaped the scene with an accomplice after detonating explosives in the hotel basement. Correct, Malik said. They were trying to destroy financial evidence that links my cousin Sola and others to illegal offshore accounts. Omalara's brow furrowed. Mr. Davenport, we've confirmed the accounts exist, but they're under your name. That means either your cousin forged your digital signature, Or you were complicit. Malik leaned forward. I'll cooperate in full. My lawyers are bringing in my company's servers. Whatever's there, I want the truth as much as you do. She studied him for a long moment, then turned to Amaka. Do you have any connection to this Amaeze? Think carefully. Anyone from your past, family, old friends? Someone who might look like you? Amaka shook her head. No one. I grew up in Ajij. My father died when I was 12, and my mother raised us alone. I never saw her before tonight. Chitty's leg bounced nervously. Ma, she could have changed her face, he muttered. People do that, right? Like surgery? Omalara exchanged a glance with one of her officers. It's possible, she said. We've contacted the immigration unit. If this Amaeze used fake IDs, we'll trace them. She stood, closing her folder. For now, both of you are under protective supervision. Whoever staged this went to extreme lengths. They won't stop easily. Amaka frowned. Protective supervision? You mean, we're suspects? Omalara softened slightly. No. You're witnesses. But whoever's behind this, she looked briefly at Malik, has money, power, and reach. Until we know who the real mastermind is, none of you are safe. Outside, the media storm only grew worse. Malik's PR team tried to spin the scandal into damage control, but the headlines wrote themselves. Billionaire's foundation under fire, Maid's punch sparks corruption probe. Double identity? Who is the second Amaka? Explosion at Lagos luxury hotel tied to missing funds. Malik's business partners were already backing away, investors demanding statements. His mother called from Atlanta, voice trembling with fear and fury. Malik, this isn't just business anymore. You're on every network. Your board is in chaos. Sola's arrest is one thing, but this Maid story is turning you into a villain. Malik rubbed his temples. I know, Mama. I'm handling it. Handle it faster, she snapped. Or you'll lose everything your father built. He hung up, the words echoing in his skull. For the first time in his career, control wasn't just slipping, it was gone. Meanwhile, in a small apartment on the mainland, Amaeze watched the news from a cracked television screen. The room was dim, lit by a single bulb swinging from a frayed cord. Her accomplice, the hooded man from the alley, paced the floor, agitated. The detonator failed. The police recovered the drives. You should have blown the whole thing. Amaze's tone was calm, but her eyes were sharp. You don't understand. If everything burned, the world would forget by tomorrow. But now, she smiled faintly at the screen, where footage of Amaka being escorted out by police was looping. Now the world remembers her face. The man frowned. Her face? You mean your face? Amaeze turned to him, expression unreadable. Exactly. She reached into a drawer and pulled out a photograph. Old, faded, its edges torn. Two young girls stood side by side in school uniforms, smiling shyly. One was clearly Amaka. The other, identical in every feature except a tiny birthmark near her temple, was Amaeze. She traced a finger over the photo. My twin sister, she murmured. They said she died at birth. But our mother lied. She gave me away. The man stared. You're saying that, Maid? Yes, Amaeze said, voice trembling for the first time. She's my sister. And she got everything I never did. A home. A family. A name that meant something. Her expression hardened again. When I found out, I didn't want revenge. Not at first. I wanted to meet her. But then I learned she worked for him, the man whose company erased our people's homes. She glanced at the detonator on the table. That's when I knew, if she wouldn't fight, I'd fight for both of us. The man hesitated. You're going after her again, aren't you? Amaeze smiled faintly. Of course. The world thinks there's only one Amaka. Let's see how they handle two. Back at police headquarters, Amaka sat staring out the window at the sunrise, struggling to break through the Lagos haze. Malik approached quietly, 2 paper cups of tea in hand. You should rest, he said softly. You've been through hell. Amaka accepted the cup but didn't drink. Rest doesn't erase memories, she said. Every time I close my eyes, I see her face. She looked at me like she'd known me forever. Malik hesitated. Maybe she has. Amaka frowned. What do you mean? He opened a file folder the police had left on the table. Inside were photos retrieved from the Foundation archives, personnel records, ID cards, and background checks. One photo caught her eye immediately, a staff record from 3 months ago. The woman in it was Amaeze, same face, same hair, but listed under a false name, Adaora Chukwu. She worked in the cleaning department for 2 months, Malik said. Then resigned suddenly right before the gala? Amaka's throat went dry. So she was inside the hotel all along. Yes, Malik said grimly. She knew the routines. The cameras. Everything. He paused, his voice low. Whoever she is, she didn't just want revenge on me. She wanted to destroy you. Amaka's hands trembled. She remembered the way Amaeze had spoken in the alley, how her tone wasn't hatred, but pain twisted into anger. She said she was fixing what people like you broke, Amaka whispered. But when she looked at me, it felt like something more. Malik studied her face. What kind of more? I don't know, Amaka murmured. But it felt personal. As the room filled with the faint hum of distant traffic, Omalara entered again, holding a small envelope. We just got this delivered anonymously at the front desk, she said, setting it down. Amaka opened it carefully. Inside was a single note written in looping cursive. Blood remembers what lies forget. If you want answers, come alone to the place where your mother's stall once stood. Midnight. There was no signature, only a tiny fingerprint at the bottom. And right beside it, faint but unmistakable, was a small birthmark-shaped smudge, near where Amaze's temple would be. Amaka stared at it, her pulse quickening. Inspector, she said quietly, I think I know where she's taking this next. Omalara looked wary. You can't go alone. I have to, Amaka said. If she's who I think she is, this isn't just about corruption anymore. It's about family. Malik stood. Then I'm going with you. Amaka shook her head. No. This started between us, and it's going to end between us. But as the weight of her words sank in, none of them noticed the shadow moving just outside the glass door. A silhouette watching quietly before melting back into the corridor. Amaeze was already one step ahead. Midnight crept across Lagos with a silence that felt too deliberate. The city's usual chaos, the horns, the laughter, the generators, seemed to hold its breath. Somewhere in the distance, the lagoon reflected fractured moonlight, and the broken stalls of Oak Aaron Market stood like ghosts of another life. Amaka moved carefully through the rubble, a small flashlight trembling in her hand. Every step crunched against debris, fragments of wood, torn wrappers, shattered glass. The market that once smelled of fried plantain and bright fabrics now smelled of smoke and rain. She stopped beside the faded concrete slab that had once been her mother's stall. The outline of a faded number, 32A, was still visible. She crouched, tracing it with her fingers, remembering her mother's laughter, the hum of customers, the rhythm of a life that once felt permanent. A voice broke the quiet. You came. Amaka turned sharply, her light catching on a figure emerging from the shadows. Amaeze. She looked different now, no longer in a maid's uniform but in a simple black blouse and jeans. Her braid hung loose, swaying as she walked. In the pale glow, the resemblance was haunting. Same eyes. Same cheekbones. The only difference, the small, round birthmark near Amaze's temple. Amaka's throat tightened. Why are you doing this? Why drag me into your war? Amaeze stopped a few feet away, her face unreadable. Because it was never just my war, Amaka. The wind picked up, swirling dust between them. I don't even know you, Amaka whispered. You destroyed my life. You made the world think I'm a criminal. Amaze's eyes glistened. You think your life was the only one destroyed? You think you're the only one who lost everything? Amaka frowned. What are you talking about? Amaeze reached into her pocket and tossed something onto the ground, a faded photograph. Amaka bent to pick it up. Two little girls in matching blue uniforms smiled shyly for the camera. One was her. The other, identical. Her heart stopped. This isn't possible, Amaka murmured. It is, Amaeze said, voice trembling now. We were born the same day to the same mother. But she couldn't raise us both. She gave me away to an orphanage in ABA, said one child was enough for her to feed. She kept you. Amaka's lips parted, disbelief wrestling with the truth staring up from the photograph. No. Mama would never. She did, Amaeze interrupted, eyes flashing. You got the life, the love, the education, the chances. I got cold concrete floors and half meals. And when I finally found her years later, she looked at me like a ghost. Like she'd buried me long ago. The silence between them was heavy. I never knew, Amaka said weakly. She never told me. I know, Amaeze said bitterly. She wanted to protect her perfect daughter from her mistake. Amaka shook her head, tears forming. If I'd known you existed, I would have looked for you. Amaeze let out a dry laugh. Look for me? You couldn't even look at your boss without bowing your head. You think you would have fought for me? Amaka stiffened. You don't know me. I know enough, Amaeze said, stepping closer. You watched that man steal from your people and still worked for him. You cleaned his floors while he buried your mother's market under his wealth. Amaka's hands clenched. You think I wanted that? You think I had a choice? You always had a choice, Amaeze hissed. And tonight you're going to make the right one. She reached into her jacket and pulled out a small flash drive, identical to the one found in the coral necklace. This, she said, holding it up, contains the final list of Davenport's shell companies. Offshore accounts. Proof that the money meant for the Oak Aaron victims went into private luxury estates. Amaka's eyes widened. Then why didn't you give it to the police? Amaeze smirked. Because they work for him. You think the system that protects men like Malik Davenport will suddenly grow a conscience? No. I'm going to release everything to the world, tonight. She pointed toward a black laptop set up on a crate behind her. Its screen glowed faintly. When I hit upload, the files will spread to every major news outlet. Davenport's empire will burn. Amaka swallowed hard. And then what? Chaos? Unemployment for hundreds of workers? You'll destroy more lives than you save. Amaze's jaw clenched. Sometimes you have to burn the house down so people can see who built it on stolen ground. No, Amaka said, shaking her head. That's not justice. That's revenge wearing a mask. Amaze's expression flickered, torn for a heartbeat, but then it hardened again. You sound just like her, she said quietly. Mom Ngozi. She said the same thing when I confronted her. Amaka froze. You spoke to her? Amaze's eyes clouded. 2 nights before the gala. I told her what I planned. She begged me to stop. Said forgiveness was the only path forward. A tear slid down her cheek. I told her forgiveness wouldn't bring back the market or the people or me. She cried. Said if I went through with it, she'd tell the police everything. Amaka felt her heart sink. Amaeze, what did you do? Amaze's lips trembled. I didn't hurt her, she whispered. But when I left that night, she followed me into the rain. She slipped. Hit her head on the concrete. Amaka's knees went weak. No. She's alive, Amaeze said quickly. But in a hospital. I couldn't face her again after that. The words hung in the cold air like a blade between them. Amaka took a step closer, her voice trembling. Amaeze, listen to me. We can still fix this. Give me the drive. I'll help you expose him the right way, through the courts. Amaeze shook her head slowly. You still believe in systems that were built to bury people like us. That's your problem. Amaka's voice rose. And yours is thinking that destruction equals justice. Lightning cracked in the sky above them, briefly lighting their faces, identical, opposite. For a heartbeat, neither spoke. Then, somewhere in the distance, tires screeched. Headlights flared. Malik's voice echoed from across the ruins. Amaka. Don't move. Amaze's head snapped toward the sound. She cursed under her breath. You brought him? I didn't. Amaka shouted. But Malik and 2 police officers were already approaching fast. Amaeze gritted her teeth and yanked a lighter from her pocket. Then maybe this will end faster. She tossed the flash drive into a pile of old market debris and flicked the lighter. No. Amaka screamed, lunging forward. She dove into the debris, grabbing the flash drive as flames licked at her sleeve. The lighter clattered to the ground. Amaeze grabbed Amaka's wrist, pulling her up roughly. Their faces were inches apart. You'll never stop this fire, she said, voice breaking. Even if you save the drive, the truth is already burning. Before Amaka could respond, Malik's men reached them. Amaeze pushed Amaka aside and sprinted into the maze of fallen stalls. Stop her, the officer shouted, giving chase. But the night swallowed Amaze whole, her dark silhouette fading into the ruins she had sworn to avenge. Amaka sank to her knees, the flash drive clenched in her trembling hand. Malik knelt beside her, helping her up. Are you hurt? She shook her head numbly. She's my sister, she whispered. Malik froze. What? Amaka looked at the burning wreckage of what was once her home and said quietly, she's my twin. The one my mother never told me about. The officer exhaled sharply. Then this just got a lot more complicated. Amaka turned the flash drive over in her hand. The firelight reflected on its surface like a heartbeat. She said the truth is already burning, she murmured. Whatever's on this, it's what she was willing to die for. Malik's gaze darkened. Then we find out exactly what it is, before she does. But even as he spoke, Amaka glanced into the distance, past the ashes into the shadows where Amaeze had vanished. And somewhere far away, a faint blue glow blinked to life in another laptop screen. Amaeze was already uploading. Tell us what you think in the comments below. We love hearing your thoughts. If you're gripped by this story so far, hit the subscribe button, leave a like and share this video with someone who loves emotional, suspenseful African stories. Rain began to fall before sunrise, soft at first, then pounding hard enough to blur the city's edges. The Oak Aaron ruins turned into a river of mud. Police vans came and went through the morning, collecting samples, taking statements, marking coordinates with yellow chalk. Amaka sat under a tarp near one of the vans, the flash drive wrapped in a napkin inside her fist. Malik stood beside her, soaked but still composed. He'd called in his IT chief, a quiet, bespectacled man named Dipo, to help decode the drive. Dipo set up a laptop inside one of the police tents. "It's encrypted," he murmured. "Whoever protected this didn't want casual eyes anywhere near it. Government-grade security." Omalara arrived with coffee and new updates. "We traced Amaeze's digital trail," she said. "The upload started around 3 a.m. from an unknown network. But before it could complete, the connection cut. Either she ran out of power, or someone stopped her." Amaka looked up. "Stopped her how?" The inspector shrugged. "Maybe she realized what she had in her hands. Or maybe the person funding all of this realized she was becoming a liability." Malik frowned. "Funding her?" "Yes," Omalara said. "We've been digging into Amaeze's employment records. She didn't just appear out of nowhere. Someone financed her entry, her fake IDs, even her months working at your hotel. Whoever it is, they're powerful enough to erase digital footprints but foolish enough to leave a money trail." Amaka's stomach turned. "So there's another player." "There always is," the inspector said grimly. Dipo finally looked up from the laptop. "Decryption complete." Everyone gathered around the screen. Folders filled the display: projects, transfers, offshore, internal memos. Dipo clicked one labeled internal memos. Rows of documents opened. Emails between Sola and multiple unknown executives. Malik leaned closer as he read the first subject line. Phase 2, relocation of mainland tenants. His expression darkened. Phase 2. Dipo scrolled down. Another folder appeared labeled Falomo District Acquisition. Amaka's hand flew to her mouth. "That's Mama Ngozi's new neighborhood. They're doing it again." Malik's eyes hardened. "Not if we stop them." But before Dipo could open the file, the screen glitched and went black. Lines of red code scrolled across it. "Remote wipe," Dipo said, swearing under his breath. "Someone just accessed this drive remotely. They're deleting everything." Omalara grabbed her radio. "Cyber unit, shut down all wireless networks immediately." Too late. The laptop flashed once then died. The data was gone. Amaka's shoulders slumped. "It's like chasing ghosts," she whispered. Malik clenched his jaw. "No. Ghosts leave trails. We'll find hers." By afternoon, word spread that Sola had made bail. News cameras followed him as he exited the courthouse, smug and untouchable despite the scandal. His lawyer's statement was smooth. "Mr. Davenport has been wrongfully accused. Evidence will prove his innocence." Watching the broadcast from the police tent, Amaka felt sick. "He's free," she said in disbelief. Omalara sighed. "He still faces charges but bail is legal until trial. Money talks, Miss Okafor." Malik's face turned to stone. "He'll go after Amaeze next. She knows too much." That night, the city glowed with restless energy. Malik drove through the drizzle, Amaka in the passenger seat. The streets were half empty, slick with reflections. "She'll go underground," Malik said quietly. "But I know where she'll run." Sola used to keep a storage facility in Apapa port. No cameras, no paperwork. He used it to store confiscated shipments before laundering them through the foundation. Amaka's fingers twisted the thread on her wrist. "So you think Amaeze will meet him there?" Malik nodded. "If she hasn't already." They reached the port just after midnight. Cargo containers loomed like sleeping giants. The rain had eased but thunder rolled far off, muttering warnings. Omalara's unit surrounded the area silently, flashlights sweeping the dark. Malik led Amaka to a warehouse at the edge of the compound. The padlock hung broken, the metal door slightly ajar. Inside the air was damp and metallic. Boxes were stacked high, labels peeled away. In the corner, a laptop glowed faintly on a crate. Amaka's heart raced. "That's hers." Malik stepped forward carefully. "Amaeze?" A low voice answered from the shadows. "You shouldn't have come." Amaeze emerged, clothes soaked, hair loose. She looked thinner, her eyes hollow but sharp. In her left hand, she held another flash drive. You think you can stop me? She said softly. You think exposing Sola changes anything? We're not here to fight, Amaka said, holding her hands out. We came because we want to end this, together. Amaze's laugh was brittle. Together? You had your chance to stand with me. Instead, you stood beside him. She pointed at Malik, her hand trembling. He's trying to make things right, Amaka said. He's the only reason I'm alive. Amaze sneered. You think a man who built empires on ashes can turn saint overnight? Malik stepped closer, voice low but steady. You're right to hate what I've done. But this isn't about vengeance anymore. It's about truth. Whatever's on that drive can help us bring down the entire network. Let us see it. Amaze hesitated, her knuckles white around the flash drive. You'll twist it, just like every powerful man before you. Then let me hold it, Amaka said quietly. Amaze looked at her for a long moment. Two faces the same, separated by choices and pain. Slowly, she extended the flash drive toward her sister. But before Amaka could reach it, a single gunshot cracked the air. Amaze jerked forward, eyes wide in shock. The flash drive slipped from her fingers and clattered onto the floor. Sniper! One of the officers shouted from outside. Amaka caught her sister as she fell, blood spreading across Amaze's blouse. No, stay with me. Amaze's lips trembled. He found me? Who? Amaka cried. Who did this? Amaze's breath hitched. Not Sola, higher. The man who funds them all? Her voice faded into a whisper. The real Davenport. And then she went still. Amaka screamed, clutching her lifeless twin as rain poured through the holes in the roof. Malik knelt beside her, eyes wide with shock and grief. Omalara rushed in, barking orders. Officers scanned the rooftops, but whoever fired was gone. Amaka pressed her forehead against Amaze and whispered, I found you too late. When she looked up, Malik picked up the fallen flash drive, his expression unreadable. We'll find who did this, he said quietly. And we'll burn their empire to the ground. Amaka looked at him through her tears. No, she said hoarsely. We won't burn it. We'll expose it, so it can never rise again. Outside, thunder roared. And somewhere, in a glass tower across the lagoon, a figure watched the news feed of the shooting on multiple screens. His voice was cold and precise as he called his assistant. Schedule a flight to Geneva, he said. They've started digging too deep. Time to clean the board. He ended the call and smiled faintly at the monitor showing Malik and Amaka kneeling over Amaze's body. Family always makes the best weapons, he murmured. Share your thoughts below in the comments. If this story has kept you hooked, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. The next chapter will reveal secrets even Malik himself doesn't know. Rain hammered Lagos like a confession that refused to be silent. By dawn, headlines screamed across every screen. Mystery twin shot dead at Lagos port, Davenport family under siege. Foundation whistleblower killed in crossfire, police suspect elite hit squad. The Billionaire, the Maid, and the twin, a scandal that shook Nigeria. Every channel ran loops of the scene, Amaka's arms wrapped around Amaze's lifeless body, Malik standing beside her with storm-dark eyes, police lights painting grief in red and blue. Inside the police headquarters, the air was heavy with fatigue and the metallic sting of rain-soaked files. Omalara moved briskly through the chaos, her radio hissing every few seconds. In an interrogation room, Amaka sat still, eyes swollen from crying. Malik stood by the wall, silent, his mind far away. Omalara entered, holding a sealed evidence bag, the flash drive retrieved from the port. We managed to recover most of it before the wipe started, she said. But you'll want to see what survived. She handed it to Daipo, who connected it to a secure terminal. The room filled with the soft hum of the computer booting up. After a few tense seconds, files began appearing again, some corrupted, others intact. One folder caught Omalara's attention, Project Genesis. Daipo clicked it open. Inside were financial documents, scanned passports, and contracts, hundreds of them. Malik leaned in, his face draining of color. These aren't Sola's, he murmured. These are mine, my father's signature, my family trust accounts. Omalara frowned. Your father? But he's dead, Malik said. 20 years ago. Amaka looked up. Then who's using his name? Malik scrolled further down. Then he stopped cold. There, in bold at the top of a digital letterhead, was a company name he had never seen before. Davenport Holdings International, Geneva Division. And beneath it, a signature that froze him in place. Cameron Davenport. My father's younger brother, Malik whispered. He disappeared decades ago. The family said he died in London. But he's alive. Omalara leaned closer. So this is the real Davenport, Amaeze mentioned. Malik's jaw tightened. Yes. He must have used my company, my name, to launder money through our foundation. Daipo clicked on a video file inside the same folder. The thumbnail showed an older man, gray hair slicked back, sharp features and cold eyes. The recording played. Phase 2 of our expansion begins once the mainland relocations are complete. Africa's future belongs to those who can afford it. My nephew thinks he's in control, but he's just the face. The foundation is ours. The man in the video, Cameron Davenport, looked straight into the camera, almost smirking. If anyone interferes, remove them quietly. Sentiment has no place in empire building. Malik backed away from the screen as if the words were physical blows. He used me, he said hoarsely. He used everything I built as camouflage for his corruption. Amaka's voice trembled. And Amaeze died because of him. Omalara crossed her arms. We'll issue an international alert. But if this Cameron's operating from Geneva, he's untouchable for now. Malik turned to her, resolve hardening. Then I'll bring him home myself. Later that night, the city's skyline burned orange under the haze. Malik's private car wound through the narrow backstreets of Surulere. Amaka sat beside him, her clothes simple again, her face tired but fierce. Are you sure about this? She asked. Yes, Malik said. If we don't end this at the root, it'll start again somewhere else. My uncle controls the board overseas. I'm going to Geneva to confront him. Amaka's brow furrowed. And what about me? You're not coming, Malik said quietly. Her head snapped toward him. After everything? You think I'll just stay here? This isn't about courage, Amaka, he said. It's about survival. My uncle plays a different kind of game. He doesn't use guns, he uses influence, power, people. You've seen what he's capable of. Amaka's voice shook. And you think leaving me behind keeps me safe? Malik looked at her then, really looked. I think you've already lost enough because of me. The car stopped at a junction. Rain slid down the windows like streaks of glass. Amaka's tone softened. You can't fight corruption by yourself, Malik. That's what Amaeze died trying to prove. He hesitated. She hated me. She hated what you stood for, Amaka said. Now you can stand for something else. Their eyes met in the dim light. For the first time, there was no divide between Billionaire and Maid, only two people carrying the weight of a truth too big for either of them. Omalara's call broke the silence. Malik answered. Inspector? We've got new intel, Omalara said. Amaze's phone was found near the port. It pinged one last message before she died. The text came from a Swiss number, the same one used to fund her fake identity. And get this, there's another transaction logged just 3 days ago. To a name we didn't expect. Malik frowned. Whose? Omalara's voice dropped. Your mother. Malik froze. What? She received a direct transfer from Cameron's account. $500,000. Labeled as consulting retainer. We're verifying it, but... Malik ended the call, his grip tight on the phone. Malik? Amaka asked softly. He stared ahead, his face pale. My mother, she told me my uncle died when I was a boy. But she's been in contact with him all this time. The car's engine idled. Neither spoke for several seconds. Finally, Amaka whispered, You can't trust anyone close to you. He looked at her, pain flickering in his eyes. Except you. Her chest tightened. Then don't leave me behind. He exhaled slowly, then nodded. Fine. But if this goes wrong, you get out first. Promise me. She hesitated, then nodded. Promise. 2 nights later, a private jet cut through the storm clouds, bound for Geneva. Inside, Malik sat by the window watching lightning flash across the horizon. Amaka sat opposite, clutching the coral necklace in her hand, the same one that had started everything. What are you going to say to him? She asked quietly. Malik's eyes stayed on the clouds. The truth. That his empire ends tonight. But as the jet climbed higher, neither of them noticed the blinking light beneath the seat, a small silver tracker, active and transmitting. Far away in a dim study overlooking Lake Geneva, Cameron Davenport watched the signal appear on his screen. He leaned back in his chair, smiling faintly. So, he murmured, the prodigal nephew comes home. He tapped a button on his phone. Prepare the reception. The wind howled across Lake Geneva, carrying the scent of cold steel and distant snow. From the glass walls of Davenport Holdings International, the city glimmered below like a constellation, beautiful, detached, and merciless. Inside, the air was too clean, the silence too deliberate. Malik and Amaka stood before the towering building, their reflections flickering in the dark glass. The marble lobby beyond looked like a temple, impeccable, soulless, and guarded by men in black suits. Amaka glanced at him. "This is it." Malik nodded once, jaw tight. "Yes. My family's empire." They entered through the main doors. Every step of their shoes echoed on the marble. Behind the reception desk, a tall woman with silver hair looked up from her computer. "Mr. Davenport," she said in a crisp accent as though she'd been expecting him. "Your uncle is waiting." No security checks. No hesitation. Just a single elevator opening silently, as if the building itself recognized its air. They rode to the top floor in silence. The elevator walls were mirrors, reflecting two people who no longer looked like who they were. Amaka, the maid turned witness. Malik, the billionaire turned fugitive of his own bloodline. The doors opened into an office so vast it could fit the entire market of Oak Aaron inside. The walls were all glass, the furniture steel and ivory. At the far end, behind a sleek black desk, sat Cameron Davenport. He looked older now, late 60s, but his presence filled the room like a storm that had learned patience. His hair was silver, his suit tailored to quiet perfection, and his eyes. Malik recognized them. Cold, analytical, the same blue-gray that stared back from his own reflection. "Welcome home, nephew," Cameron said. Malik's fists clenched. "You murdered my father's legacy." Cameron smiled faintly. "No, Malik. I preserved it. While you were wasting money on schools and charities, I was ensuring Davenport blood still owned half of West Africa. You should be thanking me." "By laundering blood money?" Malik snapped. "By killing Amaeze? By framing innocent people?" Cameron leaned back, utterly calm. "Collateral, Malik. Progress requires sacrifice. You of all people should understand that. It's what your father believed too. He just lacked the stomach for execution." Malik took a step forward, fury rising. "You turned his dream into a weapon." Amaka spoke for the first time. "And how many people had to lose their homes so you could feel powerful?" Cameron's gaze flicked toward her. "Ah, the maid who punched a billionaire. You've become quite the folk hero. My people are impressed." "I'm not here for your approval," she said, voice steady. He studied her, then smiled faintly. "You remind me of someone." "Ah, yes, your sister. The one who thought she could outsmart us." Amaka's stomach dropped. "You knew Amaeze?" Cameron's tone softened, almost paternal. "I met her before you did. She came to me months ago looking for funding to expose Malik. I gave her everything she needed, resources, access, information. I admired her spirit. But she overstepped. She started digging into accounts she wasn't supposed to see." "So you had her killed?" Malik said coldly. Cameron's smile didn't waver. "She killed herself, Malik. Curiosity is a dangerous disease." Amaka's nails dug into her palms. "You used her. You used all of us." Cameron rose from his chair, hands clasped behind his back. "No, Miss Okafor. I educated you. Every empire is built on two kinds of people, the builders and the believers. Your sister believed in justice. You, I think, still believe in redemption. Both are useful if properly directed." Malik stepped between them. "This ends tonight. You're turning yourself in." Cameron's laughter echoed softly. "To whom? The Nigerian courts I helped fund? The Swiss authorities who owe me favors? No, Malik. You don't end men like me, you inherit them." He walked toward a wall-mounted safe and entered a code. The metal door hissed open. Inside were stacks of files, a gun, and a small glass case containing a folded document. "This," he said, pulling out the document, "is the deed to Davenport Holdings. Signed, sealed, and irrevocable. It names you, Malik, as my successor. In exchange for your silence." Malik's voice broke. "You think I'd take that?" "I think you already have," Cameron said smoothly. "After all, the accounts are still in your name. You're already complicit." Amaka's eyes widened. "You set him up to take the fall." Cameron nodded approvingly. "Exactly. The boy always wanted to be righteous. It made him predictable." Malik lunged forward, grabbing Cameron by the lapels. "You destroyed lives for profit." Cameron didn't flinch. "And you built palaces on the rubble. Don't pretend you didn't benefit from it." Amaka stepped closer. "Let him go, Malik. That's what he wants, to make you lose control." Malik's chest heaved. Slowly he released Cameron. Cameron adjusted his collar calmly. "You can walk away with your fortune intact and let the world keep spinning, or you can fight me and lose everything. Your company, your freedom, your name. Amaka's voice cut through the tension. There's a third option. Both men turned to her. She held up her phone. While you were talking, I recorded everything. Confession, manipulation, threats, all of it. For the first time, Cameron's mask cracked. His eyes narrowed. You clever little maid. I learned from the best, she said. You taught me how to turn power into a weapon. Cameron's hand moved toward the safe. Malik saw the glint of the gun a split second before it happened. Don't! Malik shouted. But Cameron fired. The sound was deafening in the glass office. Malik flinched, then realized he wasn't hit. The bullet had shattered a panel behind Amaka, missing her by inches. She ducked, rolling behind the desk. Malik tackled his uncle, the gun skidding across the floor. They struggled, years of resentment exploding into raw violence. Everything you own is mine. Cameron roared. Not anymore. Malik grunted, slamming him into the desk. The gun slid near Amaka's foot. She grabbed it and aimed it at them both. Stop, she cried. Cameron froze, breathing hard. Malik stepped back, chest heaving. Amaka's voice trembled, but her aim didn't. It ends here. You'll confess and you'll face justice for every life you destroyed. Cameron smirked, blood trickling from his lip. You think they'll believe the maid over at Davenport? Amaka smiled faintly. They don't have to. They'll believe the recording, already uploading to the press right now. Cameron's eyes flicked toward her phone, and saw the red light blinking. His face twisted in fury. You. He lunged, but Malik stepped between them. There was another scuffle, another gunshot, then silence. When the echo faded, Cameron Davenport lay on the marble floor, motionless, a dark stain spreading beneath him. Malik stood over him, breathing heavily, the smoking gun trembling in his hand. Amaka stared at him, frozen. You. He left me no choice, Malik whispered. Outside, sirens wailed in the distance. Swiss police responding to the security alarms that Amaka had triggered moments before. Amaka slowly lowered her phone. Then we tell the truth. All of it. Malik looked down at his uncle's body, then at her. Even if it destroys me? She nodded. Especially then. The sirens grew louder. The dawn light broke through the glass walls, washing the office in pale gold. Malik dropped the gun. Then let the world finally see what power really looks like. The golden dawn light spilled across the glass office like a slow confession. The storm had passed, but its ghost still trembled through the lake wind. Police sirens grew louder, echoing through the corridors of Davenport Holdings International. Malik stood in silence, staring at his uncle's body. The marble floor around Cameron glistened red, the gun cooling beside his hand. The air smelled of metal, smoke, and regret. Amaka's phone kept recording, its small red light blinking steadily as if capturing every unspoken truth that still hung between them. Malik, she said softly, stepping closer, we need to go. He didn't answer. His eyes were locked on Cameron. I spent my whole life trying to be better than him, Malik murmured. And now I've become him. Amaka reached out and gently touched his arm. No. You didn't build this empire on blood. You stopped it. He looked at her, the weight of everything they'd survived written across his face. You don't understand, Amaka. The world won't care about reasons. They'll see the billionaire who killed his uncle to silence a scandal. Then let them see the whole truth, she said firmly, lifting the phone. Every word he said is already out there. The video went live the moment he fired that shot. Malik blinked. You uploaded it? She nodded. I didn't trust fate to save us. Through the shattered window, police drones hovered closer, their red lights circling like vultures. Footsteps thundered down the hallway, Swiss police shouting commands in rapid French. Malik raised his hands as the door burst open. Don't shoot. Officers flooded the room, guns drawn. Within seconds they had disarmed him and pulled him to his knees. Hands behind your head, one barked. Amaka stepped forward. Wait. He didn't? Ma'am, step back, another officer warned. Omalara's voice came through a police radio, loud and commanding even from half a world away. Do not harm the suspects. Nigerian authorities have jurisdiction through Interpol. We have full evidence linking Cameron Davenport to the crimes. The lead officer listened, then nodded sharply. Malik and Amaka were escorted out together, flanked by Swiss agents. The entire top floor buzzed with movement. Press arriving, flashing cameras through the lobby glass, journalists shouting questions in multiple languages. The world had already woken up to the truth. 48 hours later, Geneva Detention Center. The world couldn't stop talking. The leaked footage of Cameron's confession had gone viral across continents. News anchors dissected every second. Financial boards crashed, governments froze Davenport assets, and documentaries were already being scripted. Outside the detention center, a small crowd held candles. Traders, former employees, and displaced families from Oak Aaron. They chanted softly in Yoruba and English, their signs reading, "Justice for the market women. No one is above the truth." Inside, Malik sat across from Amaka in a cold visiting room divided by glass. He looked older, calmer perhaps, but weighed down by 1,000 invisible chains. "They're calling you the man who exposed his own empire," Amaka said quietly. "Half the internet is on your side." He smiled faintly. "And the other half?" "They think it's a movie," she said almost bitterly. "People like stories more than they like justice." He looked up at her. "And what do you think?" "I think," she said slowly, "that maybe Amaeze was right about one thing. Sometimes you have to make the world look before it will listen." They sat in silence for a moment, the hum of fluorescent lights filling the gap between them. Then Malik said, "There's something I need you to do." She frowned. "What?" "Go home," he said. "Use the money in the Foundation's restitution fund to rebuild Oak Aaron. Reopen the stalls. Help the people my family hurt. That's how this story ends, with something living again." Amaka shook her head. "You're not taking the blame alone." "I already have," he said softly. "I confess to everything under my name. It's the only way they'll believe the rest of the story." Tears filled her eyes. "Malik." He smiled, small, tired but real. "You once told me that destruction isn't justice. You were right. Maybe redemption isn't freedom either, it's responsibility." A guard opened the door. "Time's up." Amaka pressed her hand to the glass. Malik mirrored the gesture on his side. Their eyes met, two survivors of the same storm, bound by truth and loss. "Goodbye, Malik," she whispered. "No," he said gently. "Good morning, Amaka. It's finally a new day." 6 months later, Lagos, Nigeria. Oak Aaron Market lived again. Wooden stalls painted in bright colors lined the streets. Women sold fabric, beads, spices, and laughter. Children chased one another between aisles. Above one corner stall hung a new sign. "Ngozi and Daughters, rebuilt with hope." Amaka stood beside her mother, who was recovering slowly but smiling again. The air smelled of pepper soup and rain on fresh concrete. Reporters came and went, but today wasn't about them. It was about beginnings. She walked through the market until she reached a small memorial wall, a mural painted in bright ochre. At its center was Amaeze's face, eyes fierce and proud, surrounded by the words, "Truth has a twin, it always finds its reflection." Amaka smiled sadly. "You were right, sister," she whispered. The world finally saw. From her bag she took the coral necklace, now repaired, its ivory pendant polished clean, and hung it on the mural's edge. The sunlight caught on the beads, casting red reflections across the wall. Her phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. "Justice delivered. Your mother's land title restored." "Oh?" She smiled faintly. Omalara was still watching out for them. As she looked up at the skyline, her expression softened. Somewhere, beyond borders and glass towers, Malik sat in a Geneva courtroom facing his sentence. Not as a billionaire but as a man who chose truth over legacy. The world called him guilty. Amaka called him redeemed. She turned back toward the market, her mother's laughter rising above the hum of the crowd. Life had returned to Oak Aaron, not perfect, not healed, but alive. And for the first time in years, Amaka felt peace settle over her like sunlight through smoke. Because sometimes the real story isn't the fall of the powerful, it's the quiet rebuilding of those they tried to destroy. If this story moved you, what lesson did you take from Amaka's journey? Do you believe redemption can erase the sins of the past, or only truth can? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this story so more people can experience it. Thank you for following this emotional, suspenseful African folktale to the very end, where justice, truth, and humanity finally found their reflection.